Hello, true believers, and welcome back to another edition of BK's Bullets. My name is not Brent Casina. My name is Jim Efantis, and from time to time, I like to take opportunities to review comic books and comic-based movies for my buddy Brent. Today is no exception, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about Aquaman. Now, I have to say that DC did a really good job of taking a character that has been the laughingstock of the DC universe, at least from my perspective, for a very long time in Aquaman, and actually making him an entertaining character and giving him a story that is actually easy to connect with and fun. And I think they did a really good job with that. I'm not going to get too much into spoilers here, so if you haven't yet seen the video, don't worry about anything I'm going to say that's not going to give anything away you haven't really seen in the previews. The plot loosely follows Aquaman's emergence. I mean, at this point, he already knows he is the Aquaman. He's kind of doing vigilante-type heroism, if you want to think of it that way. Doesn't really have a cool costume or anything like that. Not really involved with anything under the sea, with Atlantis, or the trials and tribulations of that whole society. He's born and bred, for the most part, a human with these extra abilities. And I think what the movie did a really good job with is making us care and making his plight matter. Really, in particular, there's a couple scenes where somewhat campy stuff, but there's some really good scenes in there where he really kind of becomes a man, really kind of embraces the fact of what he can do. And the movie has a really good way of interjecting these kind of life lessons he has with the rest of the movie. We've seen so many origin story movies, the numerous Spider-Man reboots. A lot of the Marvel superheroes saga basically follows that. First movie, they rise to power. Then, you've seen it. You've seen it with Iron Man. You've seen it with Thor. You've seen it with Captain America. You've seen it with all of them. What they did here is they just put you smack dab in the middle of the action. Yeah, he's Aquaman. Yeah, he can swim around fast. He's kind of powerful. Go. And I like that. It works really well for this movie, and it makes it much more entertaining that you don't have to constantly walk through and kind of see what he's becoming, and that was good. There was some campy moments in there, as I said. There was definitely a lot of moments where I feel, based on the surge of music and the really cool use of the camera angles, they made things that probably in other movies wouldn't have been as cool, but they made them very heroic moments. Aquaman swimming up out of the surface and doing a cool pose, that's a heroic moment. Him knocking a guy out and then, kind of standing there looking back to his allies to make sure they're okay, heroic moment. I compare a lot of that to what I consider kind of the quintessential heroic moment in the first Avengers movie, when they kind of do this long panning camera angle where you see all the Avengers fighting together, doing different things. Hawkeye's shooting arrows, Hulk's doing this, Captain America's doing this, and then they all come together, the camera pans across, and you have this sweeping heroic music, and it's just so good. Aquaman takes a lot of those beats, but I think it works in its favor because when you really kind of take a step back from the movie, once the excitement ends and you're kind of just thinking about it, as my wife and I were just doing on our drive home from the theater, you realize that some of the stuff that Aquaman went through wasn't really that exciting. But they did a really good job of making it exciting. And for that, I highly recommend it. I thought it was a very good DC movie. It definitely injected a lot of elements of humor when it could. It definitely still had some serious tones to it as well. I think the movie does best when it finds a good balance between those two and doesn't try to be overly funny. There's a couple zingers in there that Jason Momoa said that were just kind of kind of cringy. And opposite, there was a couple moments where they wanted to really make you feel an impact. Some characters that just really makes no sense. And the perfect example is very early on in the movie. These two terrorist guys are taking over an enemy submarine. And in the middle of the mission, that's when the father decides he's going to give his son this sacred blade. And I'm like, can we do this later? Does it have to be right now? It felt so shoehorned in. It was almost like, hey guys, the movie is a couple minutes short. We're going to need another minute or two. Hey, I got an idea. This is the scene where you're going to give your son this magic blade. And it's just what are you guys doing? It was just really bizarre. The villains were good. The plots were good. I love that it's a bigger world that we don't get to know about. There's multiple kingdoms that weren't really totally explored with all the different underwater kingdoms. I would love to see them do other movies where Aquaman has to interact with those other people a little bit more, because it seems like there's a very rich backstory there that we didn't necessarily get to see. So I liked it. If I had to give it a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being horrific, 10 being the best movie of all time, I think it's a solid 7.5. Again, it made me care. I'm definitely invested in Aquaman. If this is the direction that DC movies are going to start taking, where they're going to try to have that Marvel element of the lighter moments with the more serious moments, I think it works. I don't think there's any shame in copying those elements, because they do work. I think ultimately, though, that DC still works best when it's darkest. And I was hoping that there was a little more edge to this movie, but it was definitely geared more towards kids. That said, if it's doing as well in the box office as I think it is, then that's definitely paying out. And if we're going to get more movies, then that's a win for everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you like what you saw, please consider commenting, rating, and subscribing to this channel. Once Brent gets his voice back, hopefully any day now, he's going to take the reins for his channel. And until then, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I will see you guys in the funny pages.